Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. No stopping you. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned, small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. Whether it's a home studio like this, office, any size, you name it, they can take care of it. They certainly did that for me. Before I get to my guest on this episode, couple of reminders. My book is out, Small Ball, Big Results. You can find it on Amazon, of course, locally. Bliss Books and Wine have it. You can get to them online. Made in KC has it. You can also reach out to me and my team at info@joelgoldbergmedia.com if you want autographed copies. I don't think that's that big of a deal. My family reminds me all the time that a signature from me and my chicken scratch is not a big deal, but seems like some people want that, and I'm happy to help out if that is indeed the case. That's the plug for that. As always, I would love it if you would share this podcast, Rounding the Bases, with others. Jump onto iTunes, give it that 5-star review if you don't mind. Same thing for the book on Amazon. It really helps. So that's my only ask to you. Otherwise, hope you continue to enjoy the podcast. My guest today is a 16-year active member of the Junior League of Kansas City, and she is currently serving as the president. She served on the board of directors 4 times prior to 2020-2021, the league year. As president-elect, she's been that. She's involved in really a million things, and she has had roles in terms of Holiday Mart co-chair, advocacy chair, and assistant new member education chair. Karen Crnkovich is also the first plumber president in the 100-year history of the JLKCMO, Junior League, Kansas City, Missouri. Karen is 100% owner and chief Handshaker, I love that title, of DMC Service, Inc., a Kansas City-based HVAC and plumber service contractor. She serves on the Johnson County Community College HVAC Advisory Board, a member of the Mission Hills chapter of DAR, and is founder of Strong Homes, Strong Families, a charity focusing on helping homeowners in need. Karen resides in Olathe, Kansas, and right now she resides virtually on this podcast right now. I don't know if I got all those acronyms right. You could fill me in on it. It is Karen Crnkovich, spelling for those that are keeping track at home, Crnkovich. And I'm going to make sure that I get the name right. Crnkovich. Karen, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm exhausted now after reading that bio. And the reason why I wanted to rattle all of that off, and if I got some of the letters wrong and all that, is that you are a very busy woman beyond being a business owner. And I think it's always been important to give back to community, certainly more so than ever right now with so many in need. But it seems to me like that's something that's always been in your blood.
It has. I really, most of my philanthropism and, need to give back goes back to my parents. But really, I got super involved with that, joining a sorority at Mizzou. And, the Greek system gets a lot of bad press, but one of the things that the Greek system does really well is instills an idea of giving back to the community in meaningful and profound ways. So that's where it all started.
Well, and I think too, and I really want to have this discussion. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on in terms of Junior League and being president, is that this is an organization that has been around for many, many, many years, well before you and I were in existence and well before our parents were in existence. So what kind of role does Junior League have right now during such a unique time, and how have you all been able to pivot?
So you're right. 107 years here in Kansas City, the Junior League has been around. So it's not just decades, it's generational. We have a 3-pronged mission, which is to promote volunteerism, develop the potential of women, and improve our communities through effective education and training of volunteers. That's a lot of words. But basically what it means is that our organization, we're membership based. So every member of Junior League pays dues to participate. And we bring these women in, we bring ourselves in, and then we teach them how to be good stewards of money, great volunteers. You learn on the job through all of the different, we call them placements, but jobs you have each year. And this real secret sauce, and it's a little crazy when you look at it from the outside, is we change jobs every single year. So every year we have sustaining members who are, they have already finished their active and new member years and just continue to stay in the league. And then we have active and new members, and there's about 600 of us, and we switch seats every year. And that sounds like, well, why would you do that? Why would you turn over your board of directors every year or turn over the placements? Don't people get really good at it? But that would take away from the training component of what we're trying to accomplish. So the idea is that by the time you go sustaining in Junior League, that you have a wide and deep understanding of what it takes to fundraise, how to run a committee, how to put agendas together for meetings, and be good boardsmen and start foundations and events. And I mean, we just have an incredible and long history of doing that here in Kansas City. And I'm really proud to be a member and extremely proud to be the president.
How have things changed over the years too? And I want to get into being not just a female business owner, but in your case, a female business owner in a very male-dominated world. But we have seen so many leaders emerge in recent years. And of course, those leadership qualities for so many women were always there. And there's been such a fight to be able to have that voice, to be able to be taken seriously. And it feels like while there's still a long way to go, that the needle is moving. I mean, regardless of what your politics are, we now have a female vice president. That's a first in the history of this country. That right there at the very top has to be an inspirational sign. How have you seen things change in terms of roles with Junior League, not individual roles, but with impacting community and having that voice?
Obviously we are all evolving every day, right? And I think the thing that is interesting, and we always have to remind ourselves, is that progress takes time with everything. Whatever you are trying to build, you can use the easy, like maybe some of your listeners are, have had a time where they needed to lose a little weight, and you start eating, you start exercising, and then, the needle on the scale doesn't really go down. But if you stick with it, then eventually it moves and gets to where you're going. But it takes time and the patience and perseverance to stick with it. And I think that's really what's happening now in our society with women in leadership, with minorities in leadership, and having a voice and a seat at the table, is that all of that really, the seeds were planted back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and 90s when, we had the first woman in the state of Kansas to be at the state capitol and as a legislator, when the first woman was a CBO. I mean, there's all these firsts, and they'll continue to be so. But more and more, I think, especially as a woman, when you see somebody else in that role, then you know that that's a role that is achievable for you. And yesterday was historic. And I agree with you, regardless of how you feel personally about the politics, the fact that we have a woman in, as our vice president is amazing.
Well, it's just it does move the needle, and it doesn't. I mean, I understand the politics side of things. It feels like I spend a lot of time avoiding politics on this show, only because it's everywhere in our life. I mean, we're so divided right now. But yet, if you look at, let's just use Junior League as an example. It's not like everybody that is in Junior League with you as president right now is all on one side politically, but I'm assuming that you are all able to put those differences aside, hopefully, mostly, to be able to help achieve progress.
We always hope, right? There's always going to be somebody who wants to fight. always. Like, you can't stop that. And you can, as a leader, I can always try to affect positive change. And, at some point there may be opportunities where you're like, okay, well, we're just going to respect each other's differences. We're going to respect the right for us to disagree, but still, focus on the mission. And I mean, I have to say that I feel really fortunate to be here in Kansas City, because I do feel like our population of Kansas Cityans are pretty tolerant of each other. We don't agree, and people get a little bit feisty, but I have president friends in other cities where there's a fair amount of ugliness, and it's it makes everything more difficult. And I always kind of take the stance like, we all can love each other, we can all coexist here. The differences are what make any organization or any society more beautiful, like all of the diversity. And you need diverse ideas and points of view and backgrounds in order to really be a strong, thriving organization.
Well said, and so true. And I think that applies to all of us, no matter what we do, no matter what our endeavors are. I mean, that one is to me pretty simple. It's just not always simply executed, but it can be to me. So I want to talk a little bit about your background too. And, at the risk of understanding that I've got a connection with perhaps a competitor of yours, which is fine. What I'm fascinated by about here is a woman like yourself, very established, great leader, involved in the community, being in a business that traditionally has been male dominated. How did you get into what you're into now?
Well, the short answer is I said yes. And, to condense it all, really, is it started out as a one-man truck, a family, entrepreneur business. Guy wanted to just work for himself, and it grew. And then I, through marriage, got involved and helping out with a lot of the back end things. And then, there comes a time, and sometimes in people's lives, where you need to part ways. And at that point, I had invested a lot of energy and kind of just blood, sweat, and tears into the company. And so I, at that point, was 51% owner of the company back in 2014. And rather than sell it for pieces and parts, which is oftentimes what happens with small businesses, I decided to take a pretty big gamble on myself and bought my ex-husband out of his shares and decided to go for it and run it myself. And I kind of it fits my personality. I mean, I can be a junior league president, but I'm pretty scrappy, and I've always had been able to get along with everybody, with men, with female, but especially with guys. I'm not afraid to boss guys around, and So yeah, that's how it happened. But mostly I said yes because I saw the opportunity and the potential of what DMC could be as an organization. And I really was excited and optimistic that what I envisioned in my head, I could grow. So
there's some fun descriptions on your LinkedIn page where you list yourself as not just the owner of DMC Service, but also the chief handshaker, which again will get me back to what I said about a little bit of what you were talking about before too. It applies across the board, and I don't care what profession you're in. I mean, I'm shaking hands and building trust every day in baseball, and that's totally different than what people think. They see the end result, but the bulk of my time is spent building trust with these guys. Tell me about that title, because everyone that owns it is going to put owner or founder or CEO or whatever it is. That's the official title, but there's something to me when I read owner and chief handshaker that says this is a big time value of yours.
I love connecting with people, like all walks of life. I will talk to anyone. Like when people, I'm one of those weirdos when there's, 1,000 person, 500, 200, 50 person networking event. I'm like, I want to go so that I can meet another person. Cause constantly fascinated by humans. Like, we're interesting and
Yeah.
everyone has a story. And so really the kind of backstory is I just made up Chief Handshaker because when we had me buy 51% of the ownership of the company and make me president just felt, I don't know. At the time it was almost that imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't really want to put president on there because that feels very, I don't know. I can't even give you the word right now and we're live, so we can't edit this moment out. So we're just going to go with it. But it just didn't feel authentic. And I was like, well, what am I doing all day? And I'm like, well, I love shaking hands. So that's kind of where it came from, like shaking hands and kissing babies. And it stuck. I mean, I put it on the business card. I didn't even put president. Like the first 5 rounds of business cards I had just said Chief Handshaker. And it was also one of those things that when you go to those networking events and you need to kind of like break the ice with somebody and, hopefully have a laugh, like loosen up a little, Chief Handshaker does it. Like people are like, whoa, Chief Handshaker, what's that? And, it just makes it, one, memorable because people are like, oh yeah, you're the Chief Handshaker. And then 2, it kind of like loosens it up so where it's not so awkward.
I know that a mutual friend of ours is checking out the podcast right now, Erin Folk, who says she came to YouTube to watch. She's the chief everything, really.
Everything. Erin's amazing. Erin and I met through Junior League. So
wow.
Yeah, she's on the board of directors this year and really doing an amazing job as our director of marketing. And we're so lucky to have her and her expertise and her generosity because her company does a lot for Junior League. So hey, Erin, it's good to see you.
Yeah. We'll give a little shout out to Lily and James, and they do phenomenal work across the board. I want to give them that shout out too, because she and her company have been able to help me out with a lot of things over the years. I want to get back to when you took over the company, and I'm always fascinated by that, regardless of who you are and gender. But getting back a little bit to male-dominated field, I mean, it's not like you just showed up suddenly one random day. I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm Karen. People obviously already knew you, but what was that process like? One, in taking it over as someone that is not typically going to be the owner of a company in that industry. You're not the only one, I know that, but it's certainly a little bit more uncommon as of today. And 2, what were the tasks in taking it over in terms of it being yours, of getting it to where you maybe wanted it to go?
So taking it over was a little bit of just kind of closing my eyes and going for it. And I had already been very, very involved with the date, like slowly but surely over time. And part of the reason why I was like, yeah, I want to keep doing this is because I had ingrained myself into the organization pretty deeply, where I was running a lot of everything. I didn't maybe have the technical expertise. I relied on my technicians for that. But the answering phone, I mean, I used to carry 2 cell phones, and one was the business and one was the other. And I had, the legal pad was our dispatch board, and I carried in my purse. I mean, legit, like that was how we were running the company. And so really when I signed the paperwork, there was almost, the wheels were still turning. We had been in business for almost 12 years at that time. So we had customers, I had technicians. It was more a process of deciding, okay, what do I want the vision and the purpose of this company to be? And how does this now shift from the DMC that I bought to the DMC I want to be? And one of the things I did, the first things I did was I shifted the branding a little so that DMC meant Diamond Mechanical Contractors. And everything that we do is with the idea that we do diamond strong, brilliant work. Our 4 C's are our core values, thinking of the 4 C's when you go buy a diamond. And even the logo changed slightly. And so making that I didn't want to change the name, but I wanted to shift it to where it meant something so that then I could continue to lay out the vision for customers and employees that I hired to say, this is what I'm trying to build. And so that was a little bit of a process to go through. But once we got there, it was fun to unveil it. And then after that, it was really, the biggest thing was making careful hiring choices. And there were some that were great, and there were some that were not as successful. But over time, I think we've gotten better at hiring. And now we're really 6 years after, we're really hitting our stride with an amazing team. We're growing. We didn't grow revenues wise through the pandemic, but we grew number of customers wise, which I'm really, really proud of. And just continuing to refine and define, like, every day. It's an everyday thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've hit on that a couple of times. I think it's important too, in terms of not just whatever you do in terms of profession, but every aspect of life, those little incremental, those small ball steps, right? Of just finding little victories and growing. I'm glad that you've got that book too. Thanks for buying. But that's it. I mean, that's universal in my opinion, in whatever world you're in.
Oh, for sure. That and being positive. So, I mean, it was a really, to be transparent, it was a really, really difficult time in my life. I mean, I was losing my business partner. I was losing my marriage. There was a lot of uncertainty, and, I don't regret any of it. Like, I feel like if we trust the process, of our lives, then everything that we go through, whether it's tough, whether it's joyful, like, it teaches us a lesson, and it makes us stronger. And these seasons happen, I hate to say, for a reason, because there'll be people who are like, well, why did, my kid have cancer, or things like that. Like, I don't have those answers, but, I don't regret any of it, even the mistakes I made, even the things that I did horribly wrong, because I feel like now learning from those mistakes and makes me stronger. Going through, kind of walking through that 1.5 to 2 years where it was just really painful and felt sad and lonely and uncertain. Like, now I have a clearer vision of what I want my future to be. And I also am a firm believer that even when it is sad and difficult, remaining positive, like forcing yourself. And I mean, there were literally days where I would wake up and, want to roll over and go back to bed. But I was like, nope, I have to force myself to get up and try to find one thing today that is positive, one thing that I can be joyful for. And it's those little pieces, like the small changes, it's the little pieces of joy that kind of keep us through these journeys and help you get to the other side.
Well, and I think that sometimes, and I'm the same way. I mean, you and I are wired the same way. We're the same age, even though you look 10 years younger than me, because, I got all this white hair. But I think we are wired the same way. On the worst of days for me, I may not have the tank full in terms of positivity. I mean, on my good days and most days, I'm 100%, 90% positive type of guy. But if you on the worst of days where you don't really want to get out of bed, and we all have those, and it's okay to have those, but if you can find 20%, whatever it is, just to put a little bit of gas in the tank and try to feed off of that positivity, it can help you get through those days. It can help you get through those times. And so to me, being positive doesn't have to be the pressure of doing that 100% of the time. You just have to find it from, somewhere, some way, just to feed off of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned is that I do feel like by nature, I'm just naturally was born a positive person. Even like, I didn't even realize that I was positive until, kind of funny story, when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader. And the first year, I didn't start until I was a sophomore. So the first year I was on the squad was my sophomore year. And we go to summer camp, and you have all these, competitions and awards. And at the end of camp, they always have the squads vote on, they call it the PMA award, the Positive Mental Attitude Award. And, everybody voted. And then I got it. And I was like, why did everybody give it to me? And it really was one of those things that I never, as a kid, just didn't really realize that how positive I just kind of naturally was. But I also feel like positivity can be cultivated. And it's one of I just finished another book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. Shout out, Junior League is having a collaboration conference. We call it C3KC on March 3rd. And she is our keynote speaker, only she's not speaking as a talking head to us. We're going to have a live chat with her, and I'm super excited about it. But her book, Grit, is life-changing because it really helps you understand the science behind not only like the perseverance and how to be more gritty, but for people who are naturally gritty, but then how to cultivate it if you're not naturally. And I think you can cultivate anything you want. You just have to have the drive to do it. And that includes positivity.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you have to cultivate more of that positivity, it will take more effort versus those that have it naturally. But it takes effort every day, no matter who you are. And it's just great advice. Couldn't agree with you more on that one. Time for the baseball themed questions, brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissicko.com. What's the biggest home run that you have hit in your professional career, Karen?
It was without a doubt swinging our company from the biggest profit loss in 2018. We had to the biggest profit gain in 2019. So we had some really tough years, 2017 and 18. There were some huge missteps, but then we turned things around. And in 2019, we increased profit in 1 year, 235%.
How'd you do it?
Well, I affectionately call it the slash and burn budget. So in 2018, where things were really starting to like slide off the rails, and I had to invest in my company, loan my company, and I think a lot of money. It was over 6 figures of money in order to keep things going. I started looking at every single line item on the budget and saying, what do I have to continue the operation of this business, and what is nice to have, and anything that was nice to have was cut. And then, we also got really clear about who we are and what we do and focused on that work, not the work that is like the shiny diamonds over here that we could get distracted by. And a lot of prayers. And then also just, surviving that time, having opportunities or having places where I could get money was really helpful.
Well, there are a lot of lessons there in grit, resourcefulness, and survival too. Do what you have to do to stay afloat. There's a lot of pandemic lesson there. I know it was before that too, of, what does it take? What is it going to take to be there on the other side, so to speak, whatever that looks like. And so you've obviously been able to do that. You talked about some of the mistakes you've made and what you learned from them. To me, that always makes those mistakes, and here's the putting the positive hat on again, they do become positives because you grow from them, you learn from them. What's a swing and miss that you've taken, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, for sure. It was all kind of related to my biggest win was that we, in 2017, I was just like a year and a half into owning business myself. And we started going after, like, we're a service company. We want to fix, repair, replace, maintain. We're not in new construction. We're not an install company, but I didn't really understand that. And it sounds dumb to say, but it's true. I didn't. So we started going after these bigger projects because bigger projects have a bigger price tag, and that sounds kind of fun and sexy. And we went after two one was a brand new install, and one was a renovation, huge, like gutting a building and redoing it. So they were both they were a lot out of our normal scope of work. And we threw the bids out there because I was like, well, maybe we'll get one and that'll be cool. Well, we ended up getting both, failed hard on both. The first one, we broke even. The second one, we lost $100,000 on a $300,000 job. I laugh at it now. It's like a joke in my company forever. But what I learned from that is who is DMC and what do we do well? And let's focus on that and not be distracted by the other things. Here in Kansas City, construction has been booming for years. And it's, as a tradesperson, it's really easy to be kind of sucked in. And, you go down this path of, oh, well, that sounds really cool. No, I could make a lot of money. And look at them over there. They're making a ton of money. But if nothing means anything if you don't make profit. And so, it's like one of my big kind of soapboxes is that culturally, we love to champion people who are fast growing companies. And it's all like, very few fast growing companies actually stay in business long term because they grow so fast, they go off their wheels. They drive that train right off the tracks and then it explodes. And that's almost what happened to DMC. And we don't champion profit. And really, profit is what is most important. It's the bottom line number, not the top line number.
Well said. Final baseball theme question, small ball, the book, as we know, and I say over and over again, small ball, big results. What are the little things that add up to the big things for you?
For sure, just being positive every day. You know, I was told years ago when I was a very young salesperson by a dear friend who was also in sales with me, and she said, you know, I was complaining about, you know, I was 24 and complaining about how horrible life was and how tough it was, and she said to me, she's like, Karen, happiness is a choice you make every day, and that has just stuck with me forever. And it's so true. And I know people want to argue. There's always going to be somebody who argues and says, no, you don't choose to be happy. I'm like, well, you kind of do. Because even when things are tough, if you wake up, maybe you're not like a ball of ray and sunshine just bounding out of bed, but you wake up and you're like, okay, today is going to be a good day. I don't care what comes at me. I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to find something joyful when I go to sleep that I can be thankful for. And then really, you know, I like to write things down. I don't like making lists, you know, thinking both short term, but also long term, learning the difference between working in your business and on your business is critical because it's really easy to work in the business, right? Doing all the tasks. It's the working on your business. Like, where do you want to be in 10 years and 5 years and 3 and 12 months, that balancing those tasks.
All right, 4 final questions as we wrap things up and round the bases. First one, I'm sure almost no one gets the name right on the first try. How many different types of variations and screw ups and whatever are you dealing with in the name Crnkovich?
You know, that's kind of funny. Interestingly, very few people, once they know how to spell it wrong. Usually it's Crnkovich. So somebody, you know, it's all the, like, we don't get telemarketers really anymore, but when people call, they're like, as Mrs. And then they just stop. They're like, wait, what? I don't even know what to say. Or Crnkovich is probably the most common one. What I think is ironic is my maiden name is Courtwright, and that was always spelled wrong. And it's so simple. It's court, like court of law, and right, like not left. But people would spell it court like C-O-R-T, or court like with a Q, or put a W in there, because you and I can remember like Bonanza, the Cartwrights, Cartwright. Like, no one ever got my last name right. And so now that it's Crnkovich and it's harder to say and it looks a little funny, most people, once they get it, they're like, okay.
It'd be a heck of a Wheel of Fortune answer. You know, by a vowel. Well, there's only an O and an I in there. The rest of it is a lot of consonants. But, you know, when I met you, you pretty much said, okay, the N is silent, Crnkovich. All right, can figure that one out. It's a unique name and one that, hey, people will remember you for, along with the positivity and everything else you're bringing. Second question, I want to talk about this just a little bit more, because, and I'm not getting into personal stuff, but you had a major pivot in life. You had a major life change in terms of your marriage, and you come out on the other side as a business owner and as this being your business. And I'm just curious how that helped you, even in a year like this. If you went through a pivot like that, which was so personal and professional and life-changing, did that in any way affect your perspective amidst the crazy 2020 and now into 2021?
Oh, it definitely did. You know, I feel like when you look back, like when you get to our age and you look back at the journey that you've been on, it's like little things start to kind of make sense, if anything. Like, oh, I was being trained. I always call it, like, people who have challenged me in my life or that I struggled with, I feel like they're trainers. They're training me for something, to learn more patience, to, you know, maybe stand up for myself more, whatever it is, to articulate things more. And so I'm so grateful that we had those tough times in DMC prior to the pandemic, because then coming into the pandemic, DMC was really on solid foundation financially. Felt like we had a good team, we had great customers, and it was, I mean, 2020 was not a great year for us. In fact, the second quarter, we lost 50% revenues over the year before. Thank you, PPP loan and a lot of pivoting. But at that point, like, I was ready to make all those pivots and do the things that I needed to do, because scrambling back in 2017 and 2018 just got me ready. It was like marathon training. I was like, okay, pandemic, I'm ready for this. And I mean, nobody loved the pandemic, but I mean, there were good things that have come out of the pandemic. And, you know, if you try to find the rays of sunshine, but yeah, that definitely helped prepare me. And then I think whenever you have a loss, and I want to just say, in case he's listening, my ex-husband, Don, is great. I mean, we're great friends. I am extremely grateful for him, because he started this company, and he got it going, and then, you know, he entrusted me to buy him out and do something with it. And, you know, and I don't regret anything that has happened, and I'm grateful for him and the way that he supports you know, me and DMC, even to this day. You know, we're really blessed to have a, you know, very, very, you know, strong relationship, you know, post marriage. But, you know, when you go through heartbreak, there's that, you know, that wave, right? Like, if anybody has ever gone through it, you kind of go a little crazy at first, and you maybe do some wild things. I think I wore tight jeans and, you know, went and listened to, you know, some rock bands at brew top and danced. And then, you know, and then you kind of come off of that, like, okay, this is really happening. And, you know, where you find yourself. And so what, you know, what has happened is that whole process has made me a lot more, you know, just, I think, even more empathetic than I was before, and more compassionate. And, you know, this year, as for instance, leading Junior League, we're a volunteer-driven organization. And yet we still have enormous work that the community needs us. And the women who join Junior League have, you know, they join because they aspire to this organization that has such a legacy and has done such great work. And balancing okay, we have work to do and we need to get things done, and the compassion of, we can't be, you know, the commandant that you didn't do your volunteer shift, or you didn't show up for this meeting, or that is, you know, has been a really delicate balance. But I think everything that I've lived through has helped me have perspective that, you know, give people what they need, meet them where they're at in terms of what they can give at this time, try to keep them engaged, and know that they're here for a reason and a purpose, and that purpose is important. And, you know, and then spreading that amongst the board and the committee chairs, and then equally cheerleading them like nobody's business, you know, just continuing to tell them that it's going to be okay, that we're going to get through this. You know, if we stick together and keep our eye on the end game, we'll get through, we'll be stronger, we'll be smarter, and all of those things. And I know we'll be stronger, and I know we'll be smarter, because I feel like I am stronger and smarter from the, you know, difficult journeys that I had to go through.
So much inspiration there, so many good lessons. And, you know, I haven't been through that, but I know that ultimately and eventually, no matter who we are, hopefully you find yourself, you find your, you know, if that's going and dancing and doing all that stuff and getting out and whatever it is, like eventually you kind of, and maybe that is what it is, but you find yourself in your lane, so to speak, and you hit that comfort zone. Hopefully, obviously you have. Third question, this will be a little bit more of the not comfort zone. Tell me about your famous television days back in the 1900s.
Yeah, so one of my favorite, like, you know, when you play that game, like Two Truths and a Lie or something like that, is that back in college, as I mentioned, I was in a sorority. I'm a proud member of Zeta Tau Alpha of Mizzou. Go Alpha Psi. And Mizzou had a lip sync, actually nationwide. It was Students Against Multiple Sclerosis at the time, had a nationwide lip sync contest where all college campuses and the Greek systems would do a lip sync, and you'd raise money. And then the winners got to go to Daytona, Florida, and compete on lip service spring break edition. So my sorority, we won. And when I was a pledge, I'm not going to say what year, but it was a long time ago. And so, yeah, we caravaned down to Daytona and performed live on Lip Service MTV. It was quite the show.
Which may or may, to the younger audience be like, what in the world? But that was a big thing back then, any of those MTV shows. What was the song?
Aisha. At the playground.
Oh my God.
The outfits were horrible. We were wearing like overalls and t-shirts and ball caps. It was
now we can identify that it was the 90s if it was overalls and t-shirts and ball caps.
For sure.
I'm glad that you shared that. Final question, the walk-off. Tell me about some of the events and the big things coming up for Junior League, because I know that's really important.
Oh, thank you. So we have two big things coming up. The first one is next week. Ask me why I'm wearing this dress. So we are launching the Little Black Dress Initiative. It is a cause-based fundraiser to bring awareness to Junior League and the work we do in the community. I am not sure if you know Joel Goldberg, but 17.3% of families in the Kansas City area live in poverty, which means that a family of four makes less than $25,000. Those are the types of families that we serve as Junior League members through the programming that we do and the community partners that we partner with. And next week, many of our league members will be wearing the same dress, black dress or outfit. Some of them work in the medical field, they're wearing scrubs, but they're wearing the same thing every single day. And the reason why we're doing that is because it highlights the fact that people who live in poverty don't have options. They don't have huge walk-in closets. They may only have, in this case, a woman in a professional setting may only have one professional dress that she has to wear every single day. And so Little Black Dress Initiative is launching. All the information is on our website. You can donate. I always tell people, anything that's meaningful to you matters to us. If it's $5, if it's $500, if it's $5,000, it doesn't matter. It all adds up, especially with the numbers of women that we have. So I'm not wearing the dress I'm going to wear next week, but I'm wearing black today to remind that. And then the second thing we have, which I mentioned before, is our C3KC conference. It's in its fourth year. It will be virtual. We're super, super excited to have Angela Duckworth live in a fireside chat. And then there's just an extraordinary amount of amazing programming that is going to be taking place during the day. We have really great and diverse and interesting speakers. And all of that information is also on our website. Thank you for putting it up there. It's jlkc.org. And the idea behind C3 is that it brings together the three sectors of our community that can make a difference when they collaborate to spark change. So community, civic, and corporate are the three C's.
I love it if people want to find out more again. And I think that by the time this comes out on iTunes, it'll have been just past your event next week. But as you mentioned, people can make their donations. People can get involved. So check out the website again, jlkc.com, Junior League of Kansas City. Karen Crnkovich is the president of Junior League. She's the owner and chief handshaker at DMC Service, dmcserviceinc.com. Karen, this has been a great interview. Love the perspective. Absolutely love the positivity. Glad that we had a chance to catch up and do this. Thanks for spending time.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Great to be able to visit with Karen Crnkovich. That, by the way, again, is Crnkovich. My name's just simply Goldberg. Shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. That is going to do it for this episode of Rounding the Bases. I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope to catch you next time.